My 5 predictions for Bills, Ravens, and a comprehensive injury update with Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills is all coming your way today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, folks, welcome in. This is the last conversation that we're going to have before the Buffalo Bills face the Baltimore Ravens in week 1. Now, these last conversations are usually going to be a lot different than today. I'm traveling on Friday to Buffalo for the Rally on the River. And that really complicates my recording schedule for the week. So I had to record this in advance. And so it's a little out of order for our typical last podcast, where I'm actually going to start with my predictions for Bills Ravens. I usually end with that. And we will close with a very comprehensive conversation with Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills, where we talk Trey White, Christian Benford, Tyler Bass, Max Harrison, Gabe Davis, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman. We really get into the nitty-gritty with the Bills injury situation. So you have that coming up here in just a moment. But let's start with my 5 predictions for Bills Ravens. Number 1, and let me tell you this, I always try to tell a bit of a story when I do my predictions. I want these to be somewhat bold, but really what I'm looking for is to tell a story with my predictions. So number 1, I am predicting that the over on 50.5 points hits in this game. So if you go to FanDuel, the over-under for points in this game is 50.5. It's the highest projected point total of the week. In fact, the next highest is 48.5. So it's comfortably the game that is projected to be the highest scoring. And I think that that's going to happen. I think this will be a game where the over on points hit. And typically you think week 1, maybe offenses are a little bit behind the defenses. But I think in this situation, you have 2 offenses that have a lot of continuity with elite quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And I think you have questions about both defenses. We've talked a lot about the Bills and, CB2 and young defensive linemen, a lot of changes game 1 against a good Ravens offense. I think you look at the Ravens defense and they've got a lot of new pieces in their secondary. And I don't think they have the same depth to their defensive tackle group that they've had in previous years. And they have a question mark at linebacker 2 next to Roquan Smith. I think you're going to see some points. I really do. So put me down for the over on 50.5 points. Number 2, put me down for 600 yards or more combined from Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. So their total offense combined will be more than 600 yards. I think you're going to see a lot of production from these quarterbacks. They're obviously special players, but it leans into what I said already about me expecting points. And if I expect there to be points, I expect there to be yards. And if there's going to be yards in Bills and Ravens, it's probably going to be a lot of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. So I think you're going to see pretty good show put on by these 2 high caliber quarterbacks. Number 3, put me down for 100 scrimmage yards for James Cook. The Ravens defense was really effective last year with their run defense, but one thing that they struggled with was the amount of receiving yards that they gave up to opposing running backs. And I think you'll see the Bills involve James Cook in the passing game. I think he'll obviously get his opportunities to run the football. And I think that the Bills will get a really quality performance out of James Cook. So put me down for 100 or more scrimmage yards for James Cook in this game. Number 4, I am going to predict a Dalton Kincaid touchdown. I think that this is a great opportunity for the Bills to work the ball to their tight ends. You have a team here in Baltimore that last season gave up the third most yards to tight ends. And I think Kincaid will have some opportunities. And I think the Bills will prioritize getting him the football. That was a big part of what I think they wanted to do last year in week 1. I think their Cardinals knew that, and they really try to take that away, where I think this Bills offense is kind of taken on a different identity. And I think there's a lot of excitement within the Bills for what Dalton Kincaid can be this year. And Josh Allen has come out and said, hey, I got to be better for Dalton Kincaid. He talked about some of the touchdown production that they left on the table. I think they go and get one here in week 1. So put me down for a Dalton Kincaid touchdown. And then lastly, I always predict whether or not I think the Bills will win or lose the game. And trust me, there is nothing I would like more than for the Bills to win this game. I want the Bills to win this game, but I just don't have a lot of confidence in Buffalo. And I am going to predict the Bills' loss, and I hate doing that. And I know it's a terrible way to start the year in terms of, podcasting, and everyone's excited. And here I am on the last conversation we're going to have predicting that the Bills will lose. And ultimately, what I want to be more than anything on this podcast is honest with you. And I hope that you could appreciate that. And I know that a lot of people are going to yell at me in the YouTube comments and, not be appreciative of what I have to say and question my fandom and, say all the things. You don't even live in Buffalo or whatever the stuff that people like to yell at me for. Whatever, that's fine. I'll live. But point being, I hope I'm wrong, but I am predicting a Bills loss in this game. And what it comes down to for me is that I just have more questions about the Bills defense than I do about anything else in this game. And I think the Bills defense will get it together this year. But it's going to take some time for them to hit their stride. I mean, 2 of their most significant investments in this defense, their first-round pick, Maxwell Harrison, and the 3-year deal to Michael Hoyt, they're not available in this game. Larry Ogunjobi not available in this game. Is Dorian Strong really going to be the starter opposite of Christian Benford? Cole Bishop, is he ready to go? I just have questions about these things. And it's not like the Bills are playing a bad team. It's the Baltimore Ravens, who averaged 31 points per game last year and were the number 1 EPA offense in the league. I mean, it's a big assignment against a really dynamic, unique opponent. And I think the Bills absolutely can win the game. I hope they do. Trust me, I want to be wrong. And the Bills have beat Baltimore 3 of the last 4 times. I think the Bills have some matchup advantage opportunities with their D line against the Ravens O-line. I think there's some chances to test that back 7 in Baltimore. Trust me, there's absolutely a path for the Bills to win this game. It's not David versus Goliath. I'd argue it's far more of a coin flip type game. But if I'm being honest, I just have a better feeling about Baltimore's path than Buffalo's path in this game. And so I know you're not going to like it. I know I'm going to get a lot of negative feedback for this. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that you're right. If you think the Bills are going to win this, I hope that you're right. I don't predict the Bills to lose very often. And again, I hope I'm wrong, and it is what it is. Go Bills. Trust me. Believe me. Go Bills. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills about all the injury stuff, including what's up with all the groin injuries, and is that something we can pin on the new strength and conditioning coach? We'll talk about that and a whole lot more here next. Folks, be sure to stick with me. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you could turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing on Prize Picks lately, and it's so much fun as a way to stay locked in for the season. And I love checking on stat projections like Josh Allen for more or less than 270 passing yards, or Saquon Barkley for more or less than 1 rushing touchdown. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive, and that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. You can feel it the moment you get behind the wheel. The smooth handling, intuitive controls, and standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. So whether it's a quick drive to practice or a weekend trip, Mazda makes every day drives feel special. It's the small details that make the big plays, and just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. It's almost a weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down for the Bills. I got to talk Tyrell Shavers. Talk about a guy who delivered here. On the practice squad the last 2 years after being an undrafted free agent, he puts it all together. He delivers. He makes the 53-man roster. And just like Tyrell Shavers delivered for the Bills, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you can save on every Saturday that you order. You stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. I'm joined now by Kyle Trimble. He's a doctor of physical therapy. He runs bangedupbills.com. You can follow him on social media at Banged Up Bills. He joins us each week to get ready for the upcoming Bills game from an injury perspective. And Kyle, this is our 6th year of doing this together. We talked in the pre-show. People don't do things for 6 years, but you and I, we get together ahead of Bills games and talk about the injuries, and I'm thankful for you coming on here, man. Welcome in, and I'm ready to get the season started.
Absolutely. It's incredible when you think about how long we've been doing this together, and then just how long I've been doing it, the Banged Up Bills in general, and just to keep at it there. So it's something I have a true passion for. I'm thankful to let you have me come on each and every week, and ready for another season, talk about injuries.
Well, let's do it. Now, here's the thing. We've been doing this for 6 years, but this is a weird situation for us because normally we record these on Fridays after the final injury report comes out. Unfortunately, we can't do that this week. I'm traveling on Friday to Buffalo for the rally on the river on Saturday, and so there's just not going to be an opportunity for us to do it on Friday. So we are recording this on Thursday. It's going to come out on Saturday. You're probably going to have a lot of information that we don't know about when we're recording this, but we have a lot to get into, even if we don't have the final injury report, because there's some long-term concerns and there's some immediate concerns that we do have information on. So let's dive into these dynamics. And I want to start with the Bills cornerbacks. And Christian Benford and Tre'Davious White both have groin injuries. And I'll tell you what, was it 2 years ago was the year of the calf, last year was the year of the wrist, and this year's the year of the groin, I guess is how it's going to go. But we have two different situations, it feels like. Christian Benford has a groin injury, and he was limited on Wednesday. He practiced in full on Thursday. Tre'Davious White has a groin injury, and he hasn't practiced in a long time, including both days that we're aware of, Wednesday and Thursday. So catch us up on these Bills corners, groins, and what we can expect.
So both players were injured back on August 21st. We got reports White was hopping around, was able to walk off under his own power, took the cart up to the field house because it's a lengthy walk from the stadium to the field house. And then all we got from there was a lower leg injury and a leg injury until they released the injury report on Wednesday with that was a groin. Benford, he said at the time he just needed rest, was real cagey about his responses. We didn't have any clarification on that until Wednesday also, when it was clarified as a groin. So once again, they've been at the same amount of time. They play the same position, but each have had a drastically different outcome. White has not practiced since then, whereas Benford was at least working out off to the side last week after roster cutdowns. And then he's been limited at least the past 2 days and has been overall looking pretty good. He was actually full on Thursday. So I don't see any limitations with that. Benford appears to be on track for playing, whereas White doesn't. You got to wonder if the severity was just drastically different, and with this time frame that they had before real games are starting, preseason games are done, that they allowed them just the true rest and rehab. It doesn't look good for White to play on Friday, or excuse me, on Sunday, based off what we know right now, recording on Thursday. I went back through and looked at the last 4 seasons of guys where they're DMP, and either limited participation. Most of the guys that fit that designation did not play. There's only like 4 or 5 instances where they did play. All were joints, and groin is soft tissue. I think the only exception was Taiwan Jones was a DMP limited and then played, but he also played 10 snaps a game when he was on special teams. So you can kind of rule him out there. So it doesn't look good for White. We don't know the exact details. You hope this isn't something more serious, like a core muscle injury. We did see it with Tylen Grable last year, where he was late in week 3 and kind of lost his balance, twisted funny, and then missed a good portion of the season there. The only thing that reason it might not be is if they want to try to rehab it, or if White says, hey, I don't want to have surgery, and you try to play through that, you can, but you lose a lot of explosion, a lot of power, a lot of ability to cut. And it really is a huge detriment to a cornerback to try to do all that stuff, especially when you're reacting to play instead of dictating the play. So we'll get more information on White, but I'm not hopeful for Sunday, whereas Benford, we need him in order to play the Ravens.
And it looks like I think Benford's good, right? I think we're not thinking that he's going to miss. One question I feel the urgency to ask you, as we have this initial injury report, and you have 4 players with a groin designation on here, and I'm getting a lot of questions, and I don't know, I like to ask you questions because I don't know the answers to these things, but the Bills have a new strength and conditioning coach this year, and I'm getting rumblings already that something's wrong. Something's wrong. You've got 4 players with a groin injury. What do you say to people that are already questioning Coach Greenberg and his work as a strength coach and what that means for 4 groin injuries right now?
It's a layered answer because it's not just a black and white thing. Like, obviously they got rid of the previous guy, Eric Ciano, because they were not happy with what he was doing. We did see the soft tissue injuries up a lot this preseason. Like, I counted, I think it was 9 or 10 hamstrings, 7 calves, groins were about the same from historical, but like soft tissues were up a lot more. The best way I can try to clarify this or try to answer this best I can is Will Greenberg was on Eric Wood's podcast in the springtime, and he talked about, a strength and conditioning coach can never talk about all the injuries they prevented. So what I'm looking at is, yes, there might be more injuries because they might have changed some different techniques and how guys are ramping up or their workloads or whatever. But really what I want to see is, are these things going to linger? I mean, yes, they're popping up. They're playing football. It's 100% injury rate, but are these injuries going to linger? Are they going to have guys missing longer durations of time? I know that they did make some changes that it seemed like the players were liking, at least from what they're publicly saying. So I think it's still in the wait and see approach here. They don't make that type of organizational change without having some level of confidence in Greenberg that he's going to change things to get these guys better. So we'll see how guys go throughout the season. You hope that they say, hey, yeah, these injuries are happening, but these guys are then better to return later on and not going to have these things linger for longer duration. So it's not a clear-cut answer, but I'm still in a wait-and-see approach with the new strength and conditioning staff.
Kyle, I'm concerned about Tyler Bass. I don't want to be concerned about Tyler Bass, but I trust that you'll give me the truth here. So the journey here is he had pelvic area soreness throughout training camp, and he missed a bunch of time. Then he was supposed to kick against the Bucs to close out the preseason, and he did. And Sean McDermott said that he was capped, I think, at 48 yards and in. And then I thought his ball flight in the second half was goofy. And of course, he missed like a 26-yard field goal. Then the Bills work out kickers. They don't sign any of them. And then they signed Matthew Prater to their practice squad. He's a 41-year-old kicker. He's kicked a ton in the NFL. He's coming off of his own torn meniscus last year in week 4. The injury report comes out, and this is different phrasing. I've never seen the Bills put this on an injury report. They put left hip /groin. Unpack this Tyler Bass thing for us. And not as much his availability for this week, but is this going to be a year-long issue? What is going on with Tyler Bass?
The fact that it's still lingering a month after this all started. I mean, we're a month plus. I think it was July 28th where he started missing some time, and then he was out for 3 weeks, kicked in the Tampa Bay game, and then has been out since then. We don't have a clear idea. I mean, when they clarify left hip and groin, groin, that just, we see that on the injury report for the other guys. Left hip, they do that for the punters, the kickers, and then quarterbacks, because they have to differentiate the side, because that's going to impact gambling and just overall just having some level of transparency, which we're lucky we get any. So that's why they do left hip versus just hip in general there. So he's been dealing with a soreness, and they didn't have to give us a lot of details during the preseason. I thought he's dealing with this thing called osteitis pubis, and I know I mispronounced that because it's Latin and whatnot.
Nobody would know. Nobody would know. Yeah, you're good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but it really, when it comes down to it's a inflammation of the pubis symphysis, which is a cartilage area where the pubic bones fit together. So imagine where your genitals are at, and then you go right in. It's that area where that connects that there. That can become inflamed through overuse in kicking and things like jumping, but we see a lot more in kicking. Guys can come back in a few weeks there and play through that there. And they took about 3 weeks for Bass to slowly come back and reduce the inflammation. I assume that's what it was. And then he kicked it up, and then something flared it up again. The other option, it could be a sports hernia, which is a core muscle injury. The only thing is, if it was a core muscle injury, that they usually can diagnose those pretty quickly. Like, it doesn't always show up initially as that's your primary injury unless it's a pretty significant tear. But then if that's the case, why didn't they go to get that fixed right away? Then you're not dealing with a kicker going into week 1 who hasn't practiced and is very, very limited. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes on injury reserve and gets something addressed, whether it's more rest, more rehab, if he gets surgery or something like that. It's not great when you're bringing in a 41-year-old kicker and you had somebody else younger in the preseason, but I'm not having a lot of hope for Bass. And if he doesn't go on injury reserve, I expect this thing to linger all year, and that's going to be really bad, especially as it goes later on in the season. So we might get more information later on, but it's not looking great right now, given the time frame we've already experienced.
File that under things that are annoying. You don't want to have to be thinking about kickers and availability, but here we are in week 1, and that's the world we're living in. Let's talk about some of these receivers. Khalil Shakir had the ankle deal. He's practiced in full all week. I don't think we're concerned that he's going to miss Sunday, but would love your thoughts on just that ankle injury and maybe concerns that it could re-aggravate or something like that. And then, of course, Keon Coleman has been limited Wednesday and Thursday with a groin injury. The video shows that he's moving quite well. I think he's probably going to be fine for Sunday, but any thoughts that you have on that situation as well?
Like you said, Coleman's looking good. Jonathan Acosta of WGRZ Channel 2 had posted some video. It was looking really good. He's not going full speed, of course, but he might just tweak something on Wednesday, and they're just watching it, and maybe they keep him out for a handful of reps or something. We don't know what limit it is in terms of whether he practicing 1 repetition or everything but 1 repetition. So I don't see anything of concern until maybe he gets out there on Sunday. As for Shakir, he suffered the right ankle sprain when he was rolled up on during the blue and red scrimmage on August 1st. He's had a solid month to get actual rest and recovery and rehab to that area. So he's been looking really good running. We haven't seen him go full speed yet from what I've seen on video, but he's been able to cut off of that right leg, and he has both ankles taped up, but he traditionally tapes up a lot of, the lower body stuff anyway. So I don't think that's anything out of the ordinary. He did play through this injury last year when he suffered against the Baltimore Ravens, I believe it was week 4. Only missed 1 game and still was able to be pretty productive despite all that there. So he knows what feels good, what doesn't feel good, how to kind of work through it there. And then the biggest concern I have is if he gets rolled up on again. I mean, that can aggravate it again and just not necessarily keep him out another month, but it will sort of limit him, and just because it kind of restarts all that re-aggravates all that healing that he'd had done. I expect him to do a little bit more cutting to the left. He's able to push off the ankle, but when he cuts to the right and really stresses the ankle with the dorsiflexion and eversion, that's where we're going to see more restricted. So I don't think they're going to go away from routes to the right altogether, but they might shoot him more to the left to make sure that he can really explode off that ankle and then get more open and have more crisp, clean routes instead of maybe taking a step funny because the ankle's still a little sore.
I want to bring up a couple of big picture items. First, Maxwell Harrison, the Bills cornerback, first-round pick. We know the injury there. The decision was to have him start the season on injured reserve, so he'll miss the first 4 weeks of the season. So can you kind of take us procedurally through what to expect from Harrison and kind of what your thoughts are based on what you know about the injury and the timeline that is unfolding?
It's a pretty rare injury. I mean, that was put out right at the beginning. I mean, I know there's so much concern initially that it's ACL and then it being LCL. So usually when you see LCL sprains or injuries to the area, you see it in conjunction with posterior lateral corner, or you see ACL, meniscus. You see a lot of combination with that there. So the fact that it was an isolated injury is promising. I know originally at the time they'd said it was be a 3-week injury. That was what Ian Rappaport said. Of course, the Bills make the determination to put him on injury reserve, and he's been out there rehabbing and working through things with a brace on. I didn't think he played in week 1, not because the injury wasn't fully healed, but just because he'd lost all that repetition. And we saw that the same issue with Cole Bishop last year. So right now they're playing the long game, knowing that, hey, we want you to be ready for January. We don't need you ready for September. So he's on injured reserve. He'll have to miss 4 games, and then he has a 21-day window to ramp back up whenever they activate that there. Brandon Beane said they were hoping he's practicing week 5, which means I can see them taking the entire time frame. They have week 5, week 6, and they have a bye in week 7. So we can see him return in week 8, but we want him pretty close to 100%, especially with the uncertainty of Tre'Davious White right now, and then potentially other injuries. So you might as well just get this guy as healthy as possible, get the reps underneath him, so when he comes out, he's ready to go instead of struggling like we did see with other rookies.
So it sounds like you're kind of agreeing with me. I've been saying that I think Hairston comes out of the bye, may be ready to go. Are you thinking that Carolina game is the target, or you're thinking maybe further?
I'm thinking after the bye. So is it Carolina? Is
Carolina?
Week 8? Yeah. I expect him to play in Carolina. I mean, if he's not at this point, I'm not worried about a setback. I mean, I would think the setback would happen early on there, but I really think it's going to be coming out after the bye and then play in week 8, unless I don't. There'd have to be something crazy happen for them to say that's not going to happen. I don't know that they try to activate him before, because then you have that full window to really work and get ramped up there rather than try to rush him back out there. We've seen them take most of the time for the rehab assignment, that 21-day window. I think the only guy that they did that recently for that they didn't was Von Miller, and he was pushing, being a veteran and whatnot. So being a rookie, being in the position that he's at, having the injury they had, they're going to milk this thing out as long as they can, unless they have no other options. They have to get back out there sooner.
Last one, Gabe Davis is back with the Bills, and it's been an interesting journey for him. Signs the big deal with Jacksonville, and he gets hurt, right? He has a torn meniscus pretty early in the season, and I guess what's a little bit surprising is that he's still working back from a torn meniscus, and we're talking months. I think you feel like this would be recovered by now, but I know you have some details on his situation and what's kind of kept this rehab from happening, being done sooner than it is right now.
Yeah, so Gabe Davis, he tore his meniscus back in week 10, and then they decided to put him in injury reserve, and he went and got the surgery. Of all places to find injury information, Shane Gillis, his Matt and Shane Secret podcast, he was on there mid-August. I know you got to look everywhere, and I give the Steelers beat reporters credit, because that's where I kind of found that he was on that podcast to begin with there. So he was on there talking with Shane Gillis, and I don't know who the other guy is. But he was saying that how he's rehabbing from his medial meniscus tear, and he had partially torn his PCL, and we knew that in week 17 of the 2023 season when the Bills clinched the AFC East division against the Dolphins. He had injured his knee early in the first half and had to come off there. So he's playing in Jacksonville on a partially torn PCL, which guys often do. Same injury that Dalton Kincaid had last year. He fully tears the PCL and tears the medial meniscus, goes to get surgery. When you have a full tear like that, in both instances, they're going to try to repair both of those. So the PCL repair sometimes takes a little bit longer because it's a rare surgery to have, but the meniscus can also take 6 to 9 months. So we're kind of at that time frame where it's like, hey, you should be backed up to speed right now. The one thing that slowed everything up was he revealed that he also got blood clot during that time. He was off non-weight bearing for up to 12 weeks. He had said on the podcast, and then when you develop blood clot, you're on blood thinners for another 3 months after that. And you're not stopping rehab altogether, but you're not really doing a lot of heavy intensive activities, because what you don't want to do is, yes, you get the blood thinners in there to break up the blood clot, but you don't want to do overstrenuous activity, a lot of resistive activity that's going to dislodge that blood clot, because then you're talking heart attack, stroke, going to the lungs. There's a lot of worse things that can happen if you let that blood clot go elsewhere. So that slowed up everything. And I've seen videos of Cover One putting video of Gabe Davis working out. He looks real good. There's still little deficits with the knee pushing off there, but the Bills were smart to do this and bring him in, signed him to the practice squad, so it didn't really affect the cap, and then put him on injury reserve. So that allows him the 4 games to get up to speed, be in the building, but they're not pressured to be playing right away. So I know that some people have been knocking, people were saying, Davis, why'd you bring a washed-up receiver in? Well, this was good because he knows the team. He knows what to explain a big game, and then he's not rushed to get back on the field because other guys might have been rushing to get back out there, not playing or playing at less than 100% and then really struggling the entire time and then not get that next big contract. So this is good for Davis long-term for his career. This is great for the Bills to get an experienced receiver in, and then he's not rushed to get back out there, and then he can really fully get rehab so he can be up to speed. And he's healthy, but he's not up to NFL conditioning yet. And that's where he's trying to work on that the next month at least.
All right, folks, he's Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills. He's going to join us each week, giving you this type of information. You will know what's going on with these injuries. Dr. Kyle, thanks for coming on and sharing your expertise.
Thank you, Joe, and go Bills.
All right, folks, the hay is in the barn. We've done all we can. The only thing that's left to do is for the Buffalo Bills to go out there and win this game. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Please do. I want to have a victory Monday so bad. So I hope I'm wrong about that prediction. Go Bills. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.